I don't know how he's going to deport that many fucking people, man. Like, apparently they said there's over like 20 million illegals in the country. To get rid of that many people, so like, you do the math, right? So 365 times 4, so 1460. So 20 million divided by 1460. So you got to deport 13,000 people a day. That's a lot. That's a lot of people. Like, yeah. Plus the family. Yeah, that's a lot. If you got to deport, that's a lot of deporting. That's every day. You don't take a day off.
Stories that we are seeing here on this Monday, and one of them has to do with President-elect Donald Trump. We saw in his past administration where he would make news on social media, and that is going to continue on during this administration, already doing so today. I do want to mention and showcase this. This is what I am talking about.
By the way, I think it's a good thing that more politicians and people like this are doing news and like putting out their own stuff rather than using media to put out information, because it gives them more power and it takes power away from the media that I think is biased and controlled and works against people's best interests.
This has to do about his mass deportation plan when it comes to undocumented immigrants here. This is what was said where Donald Trump confirmed some of
I hate that word, undocumented immigrants. I think that's the most annoying fucking word, because it's just soft language to make it seem like they're not committing the law. It's like saying that you have undocumented stuff when you walk out of a store because you don't have a receipt because you stole it. They're illegal immigrants. Undocumented.
News reporting that has been in the past saying, this was from Tom Fitton putting this out, saying reports are that incoming Donald Trump administration prepared to declare a national emergency and will use military assets to reverse the Biden invasion through a mass deportation program.
So he's going to try and use the military. Whoa. And then he just responds. He says, true. Oh, man.
Then Donald Trump replying and putting it out there, confirming it, saying true with some exclamation points here. So we want to continue to talk about this, a major policy, of course, of Donald Trump, what he campaigned on when it was talking about migrants in the United States. So let's bring in our next guest here of this hour. This is from Axios, Steph Kite, Axios politics reporter and immigration expert. Thanks so much for joining us here on Live Now from Vox today.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. So let's get right into it here. This is something, of course, that Donald Trump campaigned on, talked about what would happen if he became president. Now we're seeing some of what he is describing as his plans for this administration. Just tell us a little bit about the details of this. Of course, he said during it that he was going to focus the beginning parts on the actual criminal migrants in the country.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question that with a second Trump administration, he's going to be, even more aggressive when it comes to cracking down on unauthorized immigrants in the U.S. And he's planning to use all sorts of legal loopholes and options within the federal government to do so. We've heard him talk a lot about using parts of the military to crack down on cartels in Mexico.
I feel like that's probably what he should do, to be honest, because I feel like a lot of the people that voted for him, that's what they want to have happen. Like, I feel like this is like a big topic for a lot of people, and they want him to do this.
For example, but also using federal law enforcement agents to expand the number of people who can be involved in these arrest and deportation efforts. Because when it comes to arresting undocumented immigrants and deportation, it requires a lot of logistical planning, and it requires a lot of manpower and investment from the federal government. And I've spoken to Trump officials who say that they do have very specific plans to not just involve ICE agents, whose job it is to kind of arrest and deport immigrants who are in the country unlawfully, but to also include other federal agents such as DEA agents, potentially.
Thank fucking God. Make the DEA useful. Great.
The National Guard. So they are going to use as many options as possible to make this happen.
And another question that is big and continues to be talked about and remains to be unseen. So we don't. It's not just not on the border counties and towns. These migrants are really all across the country. So how would this look as far as from getting them from one place to the next? How would that look like?
Just get them on a plane, fly them out, right?
Yeah, I mean, again, these are very difficult logistical maneuvers,
Yeah.
right? And there's different ways that ICE agents will target immigrants in the country illegally. And some are work site raids, for example. That's something we've seen in the past where if they have knowledge that there is a company that's employing immigrants who are not in the country lawfully, that can be one target for ICE
They
agents.
say they're gonna raid them. God damn. Wow.
Sometimes they can, target specific people's homes. This is usually the case when the person in question has, some kind of criminal record. So
Yeah.
this could look a lot of different ways. And I will point out that in the past, deportation sounds, can be something that people in the U.S. are supportive of. They feel like immigrants should follow the law in the processes to get here. But the reality of a worksite arrest or at-home arrest is quite hands-on and can be, a disturbing public image at times, especially when you have kids involved or you have parents involved, when you have kids who are U.S. citizens involved. So that is a question, that I have as we move towards this as a speaker.
I think that like that's true to an extent, but I actually think that like most people probably don't give a fuck. It's womp womp, too bad, right? Deport them together, yeah. Like, I think that the sentiment has changed a lot because I feel like there's been a lot of, like, emotional blackmail that a lot of, like, different policies use and they utilize. And so it's like, well, you don't want to do this because it would make people sad. And I feel like that's not as effective anymore. Like, people just don't give a fuck about it as much. They're like, yeah, we know that. We're going to do it anyway. And that yeah, follow the law, exactly. And I think that, yeah, a lot of people are just tired of that.
Becomes more of a reality. Do we see continued support for these kinds of policies as we've seen during this election cycle, or do we see a backlash when people realize the reality of what a mass arrest and what mass deportation efforts actually look like? And
I think it might. There's also a chance it could be the opposite. When people actually see that it's happening and it's working, it will make them even more supportive of it. Because it's like, it was one thing that like you're talking about it, but like whenever it's happening and people are like, holy shit, like it's actually happening. Yeah, people are going to be more supportive. Because you want to get people motivated, have them win.
And on the deportation front in particular, I would note that deportation is a very difficult maneuver, that we only have so many planes. Logistically, think about commercial flying, all that goes into traveling across the country, and then add in a international flight, sometimes to very far destinations. And the fact that these are people who typically are shackled while they're being deported, all of the security required for that. So this is going to be a very difficult lift, requiring a lot of resources, potentially additional resources from Congress. So while Trump is clearly very serious about these proposals, it will take a lot to actually get it done, not to mention cooperation from countries like Venezuela that we've had difficulty with them actually receiving their citizens back.
And tell me a little bit.
How would you have difficulty with that? It's their fucking people.
About the media perspective and just how much.
I think it's real privilege opinion. I think you're owed the right to live in a place that's not yours, and think that you're owed some kind of consideration for your situation when you disrespected us by coming here. Yeah, I think so too. I mean, like, to be honest, like if I was a if I lived in like one of those countries in like South America that sucks, like I would try my best to try to get up here, right? And if I thought I could, I would illegally immigrate too. But the thing is also, I mean, you can't expect people to just like be okay with that. Like, I don't blame them for doing it, but it doesn't mean that you can let them do it. Like, it basically, like, I can see where they're coming from. I can see why they're doing it. It doesn't mean it's okay. I mean, I feel like if you can't see why they're doing it, I mean, like, bro, come on, think about it.
of maybe how hard it will be to maybe report on these almost in real time, because you figure, you doubt that there would be press releases, come to this area to see a mass arrest. It likely won't
Like
come
an
out like
event?
that. So how will it be on the media landscape to be reporting on this as it is happening?
It's a good question. And, it'll probably depend on the situation, right? There are some cases where administrations have wanted to showcase these processes as, a reason to deter illegal immigration towards the US, right? This is
Yeah, of
sometimes
course.
a measure to show that the US is taking this seriously. So I would not be surprised if in some instances the future Trump administration would want some press coverage of events like this. Oftentimes they
Well,
rely
they will want press coverage of it, because there's a lot of people that voted for him that they voted for him to do this. That's what that was the point, right? And so of course they're going to want coverage of it, because it's like him saying, like, hey, I said I was going to do this. Here it is. It's happening. Right. That's why I won. Yeah, exactly. Wasn't Obama deporter in chief? Oh, yeah. Obama deported more people than I think anybody.
on local press, people who are on the ground where these arrests are taking place. I have had the opportunity to watch deportation flights board and take off from the border. So it is something that you do have select access to, but also given the risks involved, there is limited access there. But, it has been interesting that these policies may be controversial to some, but Trump has been very open about what his plans are when it comes to cracking down on immigration in the US. It's been well reported throughout the campaign. We can look back at what he did during the past administration. This isn't an issue that Trump shies away on. It's one that he feels very confident in. So
I think that he shied away from it more in the first term. And I think that now the public has a different perception on like deportation. I think that in 2016, the way I remember it is that people were a lot softer on it. And I think that now people have a much harsher stance. I think that one of the big reasons for that is because of the economy. So the economy is a lot worse. And so the idea that illegals are putting pressure on the economy, whether you believe that is true or not, I think that it becomes a lot stronger of a motivator for people to have less empathy. The softer approach didn't work. Yeah, and I think so. And now, if you look at it now, I think a bunch of people, and also I feel like another component to this is like the, proverbial like Overton window. I think that a lot of people actually did want this, but back in like 2016, the culture hadn't shifted enough to where it was acceptable to say it, but now it has. And I think that now people are just pretty much saying it flat out, like, yeah, it doesn't matter who you are, get the fuck out of here. And I even remember like Donald Trump talked about, like I think it was 14th Amendment. I don't know if it's 14th or not. No, 19th is women voting. I think it might be 14th Amendment. It like kind of guarantees somebody's citizenship if they're born here. I remember he talked about that in 2016 and 2015. And he even said kind of like he alluded like, yeah, we're probably not going to be able to get rid of that. And so now I feel like there's been a massive shift.
I think we will have a lot of insight into some of his big border proposals, though, of course, there's always been a little bit of a difficult relationship between the press and, former President Trump, so that could impact things.
Yeah, that is so true, and it'll be interesting to see.
I don't think that the press can hold him accountable for things anymore because the press has damaged their reputation so much. Like, basically, back in the day, even in 2016, like, mainstream media had more of a stranglehold on, like, culture and conversation. Whereas now, I think it's completely lost that stranglehold. I think basically everything from, like, COVID was the pinnacle, and then everything went downhill after that.
Again, how it is all going to play out from a campaign-style stump speech to seeing it displayed in real life here. So that will be what a lot of people are going to be looking at. And it should be also noted that the majority of Trump supporters, this is something that they want to see. And
exactly. They want to see him bring home the bacon. They want to see this happen. Like that's the thing that I feel like a lot of people aren't keeping in mind. Like he's going to do what's going to be like what his people want him to do. It's going to happen. They want to see it. Yeah, exactly. And I think also people that are going to kind of push against it, like any like Republicans or anybody else that pushes against it, I feel like they're just going to get shit on so hard.
They even talked about how high it was on the totem pole for them when it came to the economy and illegal immigration, that this was one of the two factors that they want. That's why they wanted Donald Trump back in office.
Yeah, that's exactly why. 100%.
It looks like we may have, let's see, do we have, I'm sorry, we lost you there for 1 second.
They should just use Discord. This shit never happens on Discord. Like, I don't know what they're trying to do. Like, some internal, just use Discord, man. Like, what are y'all doing?
All right, can you hear me now?
Probably still using Skype.
We got you good right now.
Just going to add, you're absolutely right that these policies are very popular with Republicans. It's one of the big reasons why Trump felt like he won the election, because he was right on this issue and spoke to the American people. And I would add that it's not just Republicans. And one of the things we've seen over the past year are more independents and even some Democrats raising more concern about the way policies at the border in particular have operated, especially with so many migrants heading towards Democratic-run cities. That has caused a lot of concern with Democratic officials even.
Well, the reason why that's changed is because people have felt negative effects from it. I think it's really easy for people that live in places that aren't affected by immigration to have high-minded opinions on illegal immigration, like it's okay or good. But when all those people get bused to their city or they get bused to their place and then there's problems, well, then suddenly things are different.
This is an issue that a lot of Americans want to see change on.
Yeah.
All right, Steph, Kai, thank you so much for joining us on Live Now from Fox Axio's reporter and also immigration expert. Always great to have you on. We appreciate your insight. Thanks again for all of the updates on this big matter. We appreciate it as always. We do want to continue on here on this subject. Let's go out right now to the border. That is where we have...
Yeah, I mean, like, deport all anchor babies. I feel like there's a lot of people that want to do that. Like, regardless, like, I don't think that they really give a fuck about the amendment or not. They're like, yeah, that's what we want to do. I don't know if they're going to be able to do that. I feel like they're probably not going to be able to be honest with you. I don't think that's going to happen, but maybe it will. I'm not sure. Will I do IRL border streams? I don't know about that. I have no idea. So, you know, we'll see what happens. Supreme Court will stop that. Funny thing about that. So... It's actually really convenient you bring up this. Yeah. So there's a really interesting situation with that. Wow. Ooh. Well, as a matter of fact, nobody wants family separations. I think that you're wrong on that. I actually think that a lot of people don't give a shit anymore. I do. Yeah. I mean, I actually think that a lot of people don't care. Now, you're still going to have some people that do, but I think that there's kind of been like again, like kind of like a big cultural shift against like what's considered, I would say, emotional blackmail, where I think a lot of policies, the effectiveness of the policies or like the push against the policies was kind of suppressed because people didn't want to have the bad optics of supporting something that could be seen as mean. But now I think that people don't care about that as much, and they're more willing to just have whatever opinion that they actually have. And I think that really there's a lot of people that support family separation. I think that, I don't know. I don't think it's a majority. I don't think it's a majority of people. It might be a majority of Republicans, but I think it's a extremely high number. It's a much higher number than people are expecting. Terrible take. I mean, I'm just doing a temperature check. This is what, like, I'm reading social media. I see videos. I see what people are saying in comment sections. I'm looking at like how news are covering things. Like, I mean, I'm not really like, this isn't like I don't like really want it or not want it. I'm just telling you, this is what I think people are moving towards. Straight up. Like, you can get mad at me, but don't shoot the messenger. I think that people are moving towards this.